Hey everybody, my name is David Rice. Welcome back to another episode of Dentistry Unmasked. I am here as always with
Hey everybody, Pam Maragliano-Muniz. Dave, great to see you.
you too. We too. What's cooking today?
You know, I can't believe we're still talking about these things. Staffing, retention, getting culture, attracting teams, all of the things. And there's a lot of dentists still struggling. So we had to bring in a very, very big gun with us. We brought in Amy Morgan from Spear Education. Amy, welcome.
Well, thank you. What a pleasure because you're right. We just keep on talking about it and we're going to keep on talking about it till it gets fixed.
So, what is going on? What's the word on the street? I mean, I feel very blessed that I kind of want another person in my office, but it's not an emergency. And there's still people searching for great team members. And I feel like a lot of team members are very, I don't know, like I was literally scrolling Facebook before we hopped on here, and there was a hygienist who posted anonymously, says, I can work certain days. I want same day pay and I don't want any tax forms. DM me for my numbers, like what I want to be paid. And I don't know. I feel like it feels a little icky. Like, I don't know your name. I don't know you. I don't know your experience, but I'll pay you top dollar with no taxes because you're a warm body. And it just doesn't seem like a great way to go. Is that what you're seeing right now?
Well, it's interesting because, I'm as old as dirt and I've been doing this for a really long time. And there's always been staffing issues. Let's just face it. There's always been trying to keep the puppies in a basket issues. But post-COVID, there is acute issues, and the acute issues around the certified positions, hygiene, and dental assistants hasn't necessarily let up. I'm not sure what happened to hygienists. I think they're somewhere encased in amber along with the mastodon. There's somewhere. But that there is a reality of the fact that there is a scarcity. And what dentists and dentist owners do in scarcity sometimes exacerbates the situation, which includes the fact that the basic tenets of only hire people who you want in your sandbox, that leave a position vacant versus bringing in someone like you just described, is still the smart thing to do. You don't know, the only reason why hygienists are making as much money as they had is doctors in scarcity upped upped the range norm for that, right? I'll pay you anything, gold bullion, whatever. And so there is the reality of life as we know it has changed, but how we deal with it is what can make or break success.
That's so true. And I feel like we reacted poorly at large, but it feels now like some things are starting to shift in the reaction. Listen, we're starting to see reactions from ADA
Yeah.
saying, let's expand the pool of hygienists. And then, you're starting to see other reactions on the other side of, I'll go hygieneless. Like that's a model. So, um, obviously, we all need to play better in the sandbox moving forward to make this thing a whole lot better than it is now.
Yeah. And there is the truth is, the old datum, a good course fills itself, a great culture fills itself as well. I'm actually teaching a course on practice management here at Spear the next 2 days. And I jokingly said that there's no team member that ever looked up at the stars in third grade and said, Dear Lord, someday I want to suck spit for a dentist or make his or her life miserable. Bad staff members are made. And I will tell you, even the hygienists who are asking for more money, is what keeps them, what retains them is, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Am I collaborated with? Do I feel essential? And so what tends to happen in these trying times is that we focus on those points, like I'm just going to pay them more, and they miss the softer skills. They miss the fact that culture trumps just about everything. And that's a mistake that can be rectified.
Let's talk about culture, because I feel like it's right now, it's a word, and we're hearing you need to improve your culture, office culture. You should have great culture. But can we do like a deeper dive into what the heck does that even mean? And what tangible things can I take with me after listening to you during this podcast to create a better culture in my practice tomorrow?
To quote Simon Sinek, which by the way is my hall pass, I just want to confess that I love the man. My husband has given me free reign, but but part of the reason I love Simon is, for those of you who have read his books or watched his keynotes, is that to create a great culture, there is an order of magnitude. Is that what dentists tend to miss is the why. The why, which has to come before the how and when I say why, this is where we get into the softer skills. It's not fluffy, but the fact is that the great quote is, the difference between a vision and a hallucination is how many people see it. Is that if you want to start building the culture, then there has to be clarity around the vision, which is based on the core values, based on the business values. And that vision has to be the mothership that team members who have personal vision for their own see as a vehicle to accomplish theirs. So you lead with vision. And it's not I'm a quality practice, blah, 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 blah. It is, what are we inspirationally, perspirationally, aspirationally trying to accomplish? And that has to be in the room with you 24/7, 365, right? That's the first step. And the why cannot be assumed. The why has to be clear. It has to be stated. The first thing I want to see in a hiring ad is what the vision is. The second thing I'm going to ask is not what your credentials are, but what about our vision lines up with yours, right? So the walking the talk has got to start with the why. Then the what, the how, the when, and the who needs to be in alignment to that why, right? That's the puzzle pieces to this. You have to be unkillable with that why, which means when there's things about your practice that don't line up to the vision, you got to do something differently to get a different result. So it's not whether you're serving sushi over lunch or you give them nap time. It is, how clearly are you defining that North Star that you're driving towards, and lining up all of your parts, procedures, and protocols to make that happen. Does that help? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So I met you at a HR conference, and I know I left, and my office manager came with me, and we literally spent our flight home working, like typing away. And I typed my vision and my mission. And I will tell you, it's vulnerable. Like, it's literally like you're laying what is important to you, your core values as a leader. You're going to be unapologetic about it. And this is what's important to you. And this is what your practice is about. And I had never defined that before. And moving forward, it was one of the best things I've ever done. But my question is to you, David. Like, you had practices that did really, really well. Did you do this, or was it just the time when, like, you didn't have to be so clear in your goals?
No, we did it. In fact, I would say most of my friends thought I was a weirdo from another planet because um, y- we know the clinical dentistry matters, and our team kind of knew the clinical dentistry mattered, but that had nothing to do with our vision. We wanted to sit at a table 25 years from the day we sat down together and be able to look at each other proudly and say, we made a difference in each other's lives and in our patients' lives and in our community's lives. That literally was more important to us than a perfect margin on number 30. Now, I'm going to give you that because that's who I am. But honestly, the dentistry for me was almost irrelevant.
I love that. And for both of you, there are those people who intuitively do that. So and I do believe that years gone by, it was more forgiving where you could intuitively do that. It's more important now than ever to clearly
Yeah.
set the line in the sand. And I'll give you an example because I was just teaching it this morning, is that once you've got your vision, it's the third person in the room with you always, always, always. So I gave an example, and this just, as I said, this just happened this morning, as I asked the audience if they had had a team member that had done something right, almost right, or not completely wrong. And they raised their hand, and I go, well, can you give me an example, and what did you say? And a doctor said, I had a hygienist. We've been working on more diagnosis of perio issues, and she's doing really well on it. And she's got more scaling and root planing rightfully on her schedule than ever before. And I asked him what he said to her, and he goes, I told her good job. And I gave him an A+ for praise and a D- for feedback. And if it's feedback to the vision, I was like, you know what? Once you've got the vision, what would have been better is I saw you use the new diagnostic skills that supported our goals for more preventive dental solutions that help our patients achieve ideal health. That lines up to the line in our vision that we go above and beyond to make sure that every unique patient gets what they need. Thank you. Right? Is that more cumbersome? Yes. Is it starting to actually, when Pam went all the way back to saying, does that start to actually impinge the culture? The belief is, man, you trot it out, you line it up. Same thing with there's lateness at morning huddles. It violates the line in our vision that says we work as a unified team to go above and beyond. This can't continue. The vision is always there.
I love it. I love it. So, Pam, I've watched you entirely transform your practice in the last year plus. Like, how many of these elements, like foundationally, just helped you make that shift?
So my office went through an extreme makeover during 2020. I did not know we were going to be in a staffing crisis. I didn't know all of these things, but it was the first time I've ever had in my professional life where I was just off and I had time to think and reflect on my practice. And I realized how unhappy I was. And I went into my practice. I bought my practice with the intention of creating the most amazing preventive restorative practice on the North Shore of Boston, being hygienist, like all of these things. And what my practice actually looked like versus what I imagined it in my head, they were just unrecognizable from one to the other. And so for me, it started with the team. And some of this creating culture and creating what I have now started off more happenstance and inherent. And so I replaced my entire clinical team. And my first criteria for hiring somebody is I want you to want to work here. If this is just a job and you're just going to clock in and clock out and you're going to be half checked in while you're here and all checked out when you're not here, like that's just not for me. And so even believe me, I've lost employees that I remember going to yoga after and I was laying there on the floor crying because I was so sad that they left me. And you know who you are if you're listening. I feel like I always stayed true to the day you don't want to be here is the day I don't want you here. As much as I may like you and value you, if you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. But then a few years ago, I went to that conference that I met you, Amy, and I remember thinking, I made a big mistake. I have all these ideas of what I want for my practice, and my practice doesn't look like what I wanted to have happen in my head because I never defined it to anybody. And so for me, I had to put it down on paper, what was important to me and what my non-negotiables were and what my practice was about. And if these don't align with you, it's just like any other relationship in this world. If it's not a right fit, then don't go there. So now if I am to hire somebody, they read my mission and my vision and I watch them read it. And I want to see, are their eyes coming alive? Are they nodding? Are they, is there a little smile? Or are they just like kind of rolling their eyes like, is she done staring at me? Like, has enough time gone by and she thinks I've actually read this POS? Like, I mean, you can tell how engaged somebody's going to be. And if you're not here for the things that I'm here for, it's just never going to work. And people say to hire slowly and fire quickly, which always kind of scared me because I was like, well, then how do you find somebody else? But it's so important to stay true to what your practice is about and to only have those people. So even if you are short staffed right now and you're pivoting how you're practicing or what you're doing, if you have the right people in your practice, it's still a great foundation to grow from.
Yeah. And I want to just make 2 points on this. A, because of the scarcity, hire slowly has changed a little bit. Hire quickly and fire quickly. And what I mean by that is you do need to condense the, in the world of Indeed.com and people poaching everywhere, there does need to be a speed up of the process, but a speed up doesn't mean that you are in any way shorting what's important, which is this person matches your vision, values, and strategy. The other point I wanted to make, Pam and David, which I think is important, there's the big vision of the practice, but everything needs to align. So for example, the way in which I write job descriptions, which is way more than just a vomit and spew list of tasks, is that I follow what I think about when I'm looking at a cookbook for a recipe. I'm never going to be a baker, but the first thing I look at is the picture, right? And so it's the vision of the practice, but then it's the vision and outcomes of the position, the ennobling point Bs, right? That should line up to the vision of the practice. So it's the vision of the practice, the vision of the position, which is the picture of the cake you're trying to bake. And if you follow the recipe analogy, the next thing you do is you go to your cupboard to see what ingredients are needed. And that's where we list what we call the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, abilities, and attitudes needed to bake that cake. And if you do this right, it's humbling to the 30-year veteran because the KSAs are always going to be beyond the skill set of whatever level. There's always something to aspire to. I then look at the goals and benchmarks. How long is it in the oven? What are we doing? And then and only then do I start to list out the tasks that actually generate those vision and goals. Most of the time, if I see job descriptions at all, as I said, they're empty task lists, which one of my favorite quotes is a task without vision is drudgery, right?
Mhm.
A vision without a task is but a vacant hope, and a vision plus task equals action. So expanding the vision into everything is really important.
For sure. And then beyond that, we probably need some agreements between everybody that's happening and mix in a little accountability and all the follow-ups and the processes that drive it is this is fun. This is one of my favorite topics. I love this stuff so much because we've watched it work firsthand in our practices and now in practices we coach all the time. And it's amazing when you start implementing like the right people and the process and the productivity side just starts to come really simply.
Well,
It
let
does.
me ask you both. I'm sorry, this question. How do you look competitive when, say, I mean, we've all gone online and looked at Indeed and all of the job boards, and it's hard to find sometimes they don't show up for interviews and all the things. Like we've all been through that. But we're seeing people now more than ever, I feel like posting on social, like, hey, I'm available, but I'm leading with a ridiculous wage ask. How do we look like we're going to be competitive with, say, the other people that are going to post on here, but then win the right person as part of this process? You know what I mean? Like how do we even get that person to have a conversation with us when they're leading with a value that doesn't even align with ours?
Well, the Dr. Pride used to say, when you find yourself on a dead horse, get off, right?
Mhm.
So part of that is, it may not be that's where you're going to find your candidates, right? I mean, so when we look at pressure reducing steps for short staffed, one of the things that you want to do is triage the missing position as best as you can so that you're not under pressure, right? And what I mean by that is you have to get incredibly creative. And we're still talking about hygiene. This may be where you are looking at assisted hygiene or super hygiene days or there's many. I mean, I could list a bunch of things on what you do that reduces the pressure that my patients aren't getting supported because this doesn't exist. Because we have to get rid of the scarcity, right? That's part of it. The next part is that you still are going to lead with meaning. You are going to ask your specialists for referrals. You're going to ask your patients for referrals. You're going to ask your team for referrals because your team are going to be your best advocates for this. And it's almost like a brand promise is that, if branding is important in marketing, hiring team members is an aspect of marketing, right? It is, do you want to work at a company where your contributions matter? And the interesting thing is that, if we get into the generational conundrum that we've got on, millennials want meaning, right? And if 52% of the workforce is now millennial, that these folks will work for less if they actually feel valued and they're contributing. So don't go to indeed.com if it's the indeed.coms that aren't showing up. Look, keep looking in different avenues. You're going to find people who genuinely want to be well paid, but also well thought of. Do you know what I'm saying?
I like that a lot. And Pam, what I'd add is be so great at retention that recruitment almost flips. I will tell you, if you walked into 6471 Transit Road today, in the closet in the doctor's office, which was really never our office, there are a list of resumes and CVs of people who said, if there's ever an opportunity here, I want to be here, because our team loves it so much and they get it so much that, every hygienist knows 10 hygienists and every assistant probably knows a half a dozen assistants and so on and so on and so on. So I'm not saying we've always been immune to it, but I think to your point, Amy, like when you're culturally, when your character of your leadership and your team is so strong, like this melts away unless you start talking about you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 plus locations, then scale is going to break things no matter how strong you are. So there's an element there.
I have another question. So let's talk about, you said feeling valued. And feeling valued means something different to every person. And so I'm not going to lie, as a practice owner, and I have, I don't know, 11 employees or something like that, trying to tickle the heartstrings of every person the way they like theirs tickled is not an easy task. So, how does somebody start by providing the value that people are craving currently?
Oh, it's interesting because have you ever heard the Henry Ford quote? If I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. The same thing applies with team members, right? Is they might not, I mean, let's face it, life is a slow, erosive process. If they worked at McDonald's or Starbucks or whatever, they may not have even known that they can be valued. So the first thing I would say is it's a process, not an event. It's a journey. Um, and from day one, I would declare the journey. I want each of my individuals to feel valued, and you might not even know what that means to you yet. But we're going to have open door, safe environments where we can communicate it. Because as I say, it's evolutionary. Because bottom line about motivation is you can't motivate anybody to do anything. It has to come from within. With that said, you can create a motivational environment, but the environment has to be safe enough where it's an expectation that I, as a contributing member of the team, have to declare what it is that I want and need, and have the safety to be able to learn about it, grow with it, and do it, because because that's the reality. So Pam, I'd say just keep calm, carry on. Is what it, and ask. I mean, there's nothing better than in a progress meeting, a temperature check of what's important to you. How do you like to be acknowledged? How do you like to be a challenge? What would make you feel fulfilled if we were to learn, grow, and improve, and stay curious?
Friends, if you're listening or watching, rewind the last 2.5 minutes and listen to that 5 more times. That's simple brilliance, Amy.
I
Seriously,
love that. Well, no, it's true. I feel like,
so
well, I'm in
valuable.
an all women office, so I know there's the love languages, and I ask them, in the most unsexual, HR appropriate way, what is your love language? Like, how do you like to be valued? How do you like to be appreciated? And it's so interesting when you ask somebody what it is they want and need, the different answers that you're going to get. And in some ways, I feel like us as practice owners were like, ugh, they just want more money, or they just want me to go out and buy them things. They want this. And that's not always the case. Many of them just want acknowledgement, and they want to hear that they're doing a great job, and they want to hear feedback. And I feel like we're afraid to provide feedback sometimes. And sometimes that's what they're craving, and it doesn't cost us a dime. So I think there's a lot of value in just asking.
In every team survey that has ever been done, compensation comes in at the top 10, but never the top three. And that I mean, because here's the deal. If I'm having trouble paying for my kids' daycare, of course, we're not Mother Teresa's. We're going to be interested in, am I being treated fairly and viably? But the truth of the matter is team surveys always have as the top three is a sense of inclusion and respect, full appreciation for a job well done. Believe it or not, help with personal problems rolls up there, because especially in dentistry, we very often are the double-hatted moms and dads, and not that you're accommodating, but there's an awareness that you're not parking your soul in the parking lot. These are really important. In the absence of that, if the only self-worth I can get is from my paycheck, I'm going to ask for more.
Cheers to that. So true. So you're doing amazing things. Can you tell us more about the amazing things that you're doing so our listeners know?
Well,
Please.
I have,
Pretty please.
I have been here now. For those of you who don't know, I've been at Spear Education as the VP of Practice Growth Strategy for the last 6 years, and my job was to take the 51% clinical excellence and marry it to the 49% practice management excellence, and offer solutions at every level so that that doctors and teams can have the foundation. So I've been working on, there's certainly seminars. I'm doing a seminar right now, Mastering Dental Practice Management Strategies. The most exciting is that in these very trying times, practice management can be expensive and difficult. We've created a self-guided model called Spear Navigator, which is low cost, but very impactful, where we're working on self-guided training modules with coaching that actually addresses all of this. We're training leaders, we're training managers. So I've been blessed to work with a company that already has clinical excellence at the forefront. It's been really fun to marry it so that we've got a one-stop shop that people feel like they can get all their needs met.
How can people find the navigator or find the other alternatives that you're offering for them so they can find what's right for them and follow you, find you, etc.?
Well, I'm sure there's a call to action. I'm going to get in trouble because you can email me. But obviously Spear's got a website. We've got quite the the presence. There's everything from a series of videos on Spear Online. People get sick of me. In fact, in these COVID times, they're shocked to know I have legs. because a lot of times they're just seeing the half of us right now. But also, as I say, there's a lot of entry-level seminars that you can come visit us. And certainly reaching out to a customer success manager and going, what is Navigator and what are some of the solutions are all part of the process, because it's needed. It's needed in these difficult times.
Well, thank you so much for that. I think that many of us, some of us are new dentists that listen to our podcast. Some have been practicing for quite a while. And to be honest with you, I don't know everybody knows at what level they might be as a practice management expert or practice manager. So I think getting matched with the correct trajectory of education is probably a really great way to go. So Amy, I know you're
as a heads up, there's a practice valuation. It's 10 questions. If you don't know what level you're at or where your opportunity is, that's the first thing we do to help meet you where you are.
That's such a big deal. I know you're teaching another course in a little while, so we can't keep you any longer, unfortunately, because I got to stand online with Amy and I was like picking her brain the entire time. She was probably like, get me out of this freaking line. So anyway, thank you so much for your time and your candor and your expertise and also the tips that you've provided us today.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Pam, we need far more days of the week and far more hours in the day. Friends, thanks for being here. We'll see you next week on Dentistry Unmasked. And until then, cheers, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening to the show this week. And thanks to our guests and sponsors on this episode.
Please check out our social media at Dr. Pamela_Maragliano and at Dental Economics Official.
Or you can check me out at Ignite DDS or at Dr. David Rice.
And go to dentaleconomics.com to receive dental economics. You can choose to receive DE in print or digitally, and you can also get the details of our Principles of Practice Management conference on our website.
If you have topics or guests or anything you'd like to talk about on the show, send us an email to dentistryunmaskedpodcast@gmail.com, and we will do our very best to make it happen. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.